Hey everyone, and happy Friday. I hope everyone's having a great week so far. I am Tyler Pate, and I'll be your host for today's Illustrator Challenge. So, today, what we're going to be doing is learn how to turn flat illustrations into 3D works of art, complete with lighting effects, a couple of different techniques for high render quality efficiencies, and also how to export things like bringing it from Illustrator to Photoshop to maybe put in some textures. But today, let's work on the rendering and the vector work itself. So let's go ahead and dive in. And if you haven't already, please make sure to download the source files for today's challenge in the description. All right. So today we are going to create this little ice cream here. And if you follow my work a lot, I've been exploring the 3D tool quite a bit. And it's been a lot of fun just playing with these little popsicle guys. And I'll show you exactly why, because it's a very simple illustration, but the way the 3D effects come together, it just blows my mind. This feature is getting so good. And we're going to have to cruise along because the one thing with this, every time you're creating 3D in Illustrator, make sure you have time for rendering because that can also take some time off the top. All right, so this is going to be the final piece here. You can see the lighting, the shadows, everything is looking really nice. But if you go and if you have the appearance window open, you can go over here and actually see the effect itself. So this is a 3D and material effect. If we turn this off, that is the actual vector shape that we're about to build. That is what turns into 3D. That blows my mind, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people who even push it to different levels, their illustrations are probably something else. But for this, we're just talking about a couple simple shapes here. We have our face, we have our popsicle stick, and then we have a little melty section. So let's go ahead and make this. I'm going to turn this back on just so that there's that rendering right now, just so that we could see where we're going to be heading. And sometimes, like I said, this can take a little bit of time. So the more complex you make those rendering effects, the longer it's going to be. Let's try it one more time. Because there's a lot of different processing that happens whenever you're getting the lighting and the shadows on stuff like that. Okay, so let's dive into just making this. And I strongly encourage everyone to figure out ways to create something unique for yourself and use these tools to just have fun. I mean, that's what this is all about. Let's go ahead and change this to a light pink. It's going to be the top of our ice cream. I'm going to delete the bottom piece here. I'm going to bring this down almost like a tombstone type shape here. We can round these corners just a little bit, and I'm going to actually use the pen tool here to make this little drip effect. Very simple. Again, don't try to make it too complicated because the rendering is going to be what we're going after, not the details. Something like that, I think, would be nice. There we go. Nice and easy. And I'm just using the pen tool here, making sure that my lines and curves feel pretty good. I think something like that. Okay. There we go. And then I'm going to now select both. I'm going to use my shape builder tool. And I'm going to create, let's do the top piece here. Create a new shape. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to Command Z back just before we made that cut, because I always like to have a nice foundation to work on. And you can see this is two shapes. We'll turn this bottom one, do this blue here. We can adjust it a little bit. Awesome. Now let's make our little eyeballs. This is going to be an off-white. Copy, paste into place so it's directly above. We're going to change this to a darker color to get the darkness in the eyes. And then let's make a little highlight. And I always like to do this whenever making characters. Again, it's something that you see a lot with illustrating, and especially with any sort of character design. But it's just, it brings the cuteness level up to a 10, which I'm not going to argue with that. So let's group these shapes a little bit more, duplicate, bring it over. I'll group both of the eyes. Now let's get the mouth real quick. I'm going to copy this blue. I'm going to switch the fill to stroke. Let's put a little rounded cap on it. Look how fast this is coming together. That's what I'm saying. The actual shape itself is very simple. It's just the rendering and understanding how to render things is the tricky part. And honestly, once you do it once or twice, you'll probably have it down, and it's no biggie. But we're going to speed through this as fast as we can because, again, the bulk of this is going to be the rendering. Just making some wood grain effects here, nothing special. All right, I think that gets the point across. And then we're going to select these. I'm going to outline these shapes. I'm going to select the popsicle stick, shape builder tool. Let's get rid of all these overhangs. Delete, delete, delete. And then we're going to group all of this, send to back. And there we go. All right, let's one last center. And I'm going to group everything. That's very important for this. Make sure to group everything before you start going into the 3D effects. Let's select our little guy. I'm actually going to expand everything. And what I'm doing is just getting rid of all the strokes because we had the stroke in the mouth. Okay, so with our shape selected, let's go to Effects, 3D and Material, and let's go to Inflate. Give it some time. And then there's a rendering effect problem. Let's see if we can salvage this just a little bit. Let's see. Again, it's always going to come back down to your computer setup and configuration, because 3D it's a beast. It will put a number on any machine. Let's see, try it one more time. Okay. So what's happening there is it's just, I need to free up my memory that's on my computer as of now. And what we could do to get past this, I'm going to bring this guy in and I'm going to turn the effect off so that we can hopefully try this once more. Let's see. Okay, so all right, we skipped one step, which is we switched over to the original. Same exact settings you would see on any 3D object. Time as you click on that inflate, you're going to see these same effects. And this is what it's going to look like. So nothing drastically changed here. From here, we have all these effects. We could change the depth. We could do the volume. But please note, every time you're making these effects, it's going to take some rendering time. And again, that is going to be our main focus, is trying to keep that rendering time down. So don't click on this. This button right here is what we're going to click on at the very end. This is what's going to give us that nice color and that reflective material. That's the render button. So I would always suggest don't click on that until you're finally ready to see that render, because that could take some time. So we have inflate, and in our objects, we're going to go change our depth to something like, let's do like a 1.5 maybe. We don't need to do our twist. We just saw what the twist does. It just starts shifting that shape around in a crazy manner. Don't need that. Taper's fine. Let's go to volume and let's bring that down a little bit. I'm thinking something like 30, 31. 31's fine. And you're seeing how that's kind of like suppressing that inflate look. We want it a little more flat. Let's see, our rotation's fine, perspective's fine. We're not going to jump into those, but I strongly encourage everyone at this step, try playing with all these sliders, because there's a lot of fun little details here, and you really don't know what it's going to do until you do it. And you might find something that is worth adding to your artwork, and that's how you find a style, which is always nice. Okay, object, I think we're good here. Now let's click on the next, which is material. You get to change the material to all these other different textures. You can upload your own and have that mask over your objects. Again, we're going to stick to the classic here, because again, I'm a little afraid of just it taking too long to render, and we don't have but so long. So only thing I'm going to focus on with the material is the roughness and the metallic. And these two sliders are very important, because I have turned some of these up too high, and what turning these up too high will do is it could crash the program, or it could also take forever to render. And that's with any sort of rendering software. You're going to have rendering times. And why that takes so long is because it's adding so much detail to these objects. So what we're thinking, I'm going to go ahead and think this through, maybe 0.25. So that's making it a little more smoother, giving that almost like a balloon effect. Metallic. So metallic is another one. I'm going to do, let's do 0.45. And it looked like it got darker, but you also see those new highlights. That's the cool part, because those little highlights is what's going to give us this plastic look at the very end. Okay, so let's actually bump it up. Let's go to 50, 0.50. See what happens. All right. Now that we have the material, we're going to go to lighting. And the lighting is always interesting, because it's going to get the light source and the highlights and the shadows to the place that we want. I'm thinking the intensity could be around 65. The rotation, so what this is doing is rotating that key lighting, so we can kind of play with this, put whatever angle you want, or whatever you want that light source to come from, or wherever you want that to come from. Let's go with like 100. That's almost if the lighting's up here shining down. The height is kind of where that light is and how close it is to your object. So you have to think about the light source in that way. 55 should be pretty good. If you go too high, it's going to blow out your illustration. Colors aren't going to be exactly what you want. Softness, let's go ahead and bring this down to like a 30 range. And then the intensity, again, this is one of those where it really could saturate or desaturate your illustration quite a bit. So I like the real bright colors that we've picked here. So I want to stay as close to that as we can. And then we also have shadows, which we could click on if it doesn't give us too much trouble. Okay. And then that's the distance from object. Shadow boundaries is like really where you want to cut that shadow off. It's almost like a clipping mask. All right. Now that we have that, let's dive back over to our objects. And what we're going to do is, one thing I forgot, it was at the beginning, was the rotation. So the rotation is literally moving that shape, and whatever 3D settings we've had to it, it's going to start showing those. So if we had a super intense thickness to our shape, you're going to start to see those edges. So I'm going to just play with these a little bit just to show you exactly what I'm saying. So look at that. Now we're starting to see a 3D object, which is pretty cool to see. And you know, something that we can also click on is inflate both sides. Don't necessarily need this for everything, but sometimes it helps to have both sides inflated so it's exactly like what the front looks. And this angle is the best way of seeing it. So if we click on inflate both sides, now you could see that both sides have that same bevel to each. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so let's put this at maybe a 13. And then our y-axis, again, that's spinning left and right. It's so cool. I mean, I could have my whole day making these little guys. And the payoff is whenever you hit that render button, you're going to just see a whole new piece of work, because it's almost like a physical piece of vinyl toy. It's really fun. Let's change the y-axis to, say, about 14. And then we have the z-axis, which is more of a rotation. Something like that. There's perspective too, which we don't necessarily want for this, but just to give you an idea, it just distorts it a little bit, gives it more perspective. So it makes them look huge. This is like a giant popsicle. That's pretty funny. All right, so I don't need that for what we're doing here. Okay. One thing we could do next is we could build a nice solid background for him to go up against. And I'm just using the reference in the source file. I like the colors that we picked on that. So I'm going to keep it in line. So this looks finished, but it's not. We still haven't rendered it yet. And again, we could have some trouble once we render it, but I think we're at a point where I'm going to try. And if it takes too long, if we had unlimited time, I would just leave it running, let it render, go grab a bite to eat, come back, and it's finished. But let's see if it'll render quick on this stream, because we only have about 10 minutes. So let's see. Let's go ahead and click on the render button. And you see we already have the little spin wheel here. We may or may not be able to see the end of this, but we might. Because it's starting to render all those effects that we've adjusted, mostly like the lighting and the metallic and the material type. All that stuff just could take forever, but I think this is going to be good. Perfect. Look at that. So we already got it rendered. That was actually really fast. So look at this. We've got our lighting in there. We've got our bevels. We've got little areas that are overlapping. They're now got more depth and definition to them, which is really nice. More highlighting, and look at the stick here. You see how it kind of merges it? It looks like a piece of plastic. This is a toy. This looks like something that we could go pick up today. But that is fully rendered, believe it or not. And we actually did that, wow, under 30 minutes. So I would almost encourage everyone to explore this as far as you can. Make sure that you've prepped your computer and you've got enough RAM and memory and things like that, so that you could have the memory to compress these shapes and render them. at somewhat of a reasonable time, because sometimes it could take forever. And that's just the nature of the game, because there's a lot happening when you click on that button. And it's fun to see that Adobe Illustrator is able to do this in what normally I would just create vector shapes. I would probably just create this first render, which would have been just this little guy. But with these new effects, we're able to get more likeness. And we can also see that there's a nice little shadow there. So we could adjust anything while it's rendered, but every adjustment that you make on that slider is it's gonna give you some time, because it's gonna re-render based off of every edit that you make on it. So just keep that in mind. That's why I like to make every setting the way I want it, and then I click on that render button. But if you do want to go back, make sure to click that render button once more. That takes it off of rendering, and then we can go back in and make quicker adjustments, which is nice. All right, so that was it. But now that we have a little more time, let's just go back and play with some of these other effects. Okay, some of the ones we haven't looked at. Let's see, let's go to material. Let's see what the material does. Let's see, I haven't done this in a while. So this is gonna essentially give us different textures. Let's do concrete. Wow, cement is something. These are just different materials. That's pretty cool. I haven't seen this one yet. That's awesome. There's so many to pick from. I'll just click through a few of these, see what happens. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, something I haven't yet explored, but I know you can do, is you could create your own materials and then add them to your panel here, and then you could just use them on any of your vector shapes. Wow, look at that gold leaf. This marble, I think this is marble. Yeah, that's nice. Wow. Okay, so that's the material. We could now look at all of these effects that it's given us for this this material. Let's see what these do. Roughness. This could give us some spin wheels, but let's push our luck. The variation. Wow. Smoothing it out a little bit. See about some grain. This just makes me think of, imagine going to the Roman Coliseum or somewhere in Greece, and you see this marble popsicle. It's a relic lost in time. Main thickness. Wow. Yeah, so we actually get a lot of customization once you click onto these materials. That's pretty fun. And I'm just kind of going through each one of these, just seeing what they do. And that's what I was saying at the beginning. It's just really fun to dive in here and just explore, because there's so many different effects and settings that we could add. Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. Perfect. Wow, that's fun. Let's see, anything else? Bring that up. Grain intensity, maybe bring up. That's what I was wanting. Let's bring that down. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and try rendering this. This might give us a spin wheel for sure, because I have not explored this material at all, but this is pretty fun. Let's try it. This is a lot more than the original material we were using, because it's got all these grains and this different settings in there. So this could take a little while, but fingers crossed. And that's the biggest part of this that I found. It's not necessarily making the shape. It's the original vector shape. You almost kind of have to, oh, wow, look at that. I was going to say, you almost have to figure out the simplest way to get what you want, because there's certain things that are going to bevel, and if you didn't group everything, it's going to start adding the effect of 3D to every little thing that you didn't group, and then it's a mess. But if you start grouping different objects and then applying this 3D effect to it, you can start building 3D effects in a space that I've never worked in, and this is obviously really cool to me. Look at that. So what do you know? We went from popsicle to a marble popsicle in 30 minutes, and we have actually time to spare. So please jump into this, explore these materials. There's plenty of effects that you could have fun with, but also just have fun. That's the best part about this effect. But thanks again for joining me. My name's Tyler Pate. Please check out my work, and then it's been a great week. You have a great weekend. Thank you.